If you just push it back a bit.
Oh, wow.
You learned now, you don't say special. Anyway, listen, whatever, just say.
Okay, Boker Tov.
Maybe not if you want. Yeah, good one that day.
I have to fix it. Thanks.
Not sure what's happening. Okay.
Okay.
Chodesh Tov, Daf Lamed, Mishnah. So yesterday we spoke about that a father could make his son a Nazir. Just to end off, over there came out two sugis on top of the page of the Chav test. That was two very fascinating sugis that's only given 2 lines, and then the poskim don't go into it too much either. That is the mother chayv and chinuch, and is the chiv to mechanech the daughter. And Agamara, based on Rish Lakish said that the whole issue about making a son a Nazir is only Rabbanan. Rabbi Yochanan said it's halacha Moshe Messinai. Rish Lakish said it's an oriented mechanech. More at 7 kashas, and the first 2 was why can the mother not make him a Nazir if it's chinuch, and why can the father not make the daughter a Nazira if it's chinuch? And the Gemara said Ish chayiv l'chanech b'no, and Ein ish chayiv l'chanech es b'no. There's no chinuch on the mother. The mother doesn't have the mitzvah of chinuch, and there's no mitzvah to mechanech a daughter. And that's it. It goes further. So what are we asking? Is there chayiv chinuch for the mother? So yesterday we said that of course Torah Simacha, the mother all day is teaching the kids how to be people and how to be recipients of the Torah. But the actual Torah to know what to do. What?
She's at least the father's shliach.
She could be the father's shliach, but okay, but that's going to be. But is there chayiv on the mother? Means when the kid finishes eating, is it her responsibility? Of course, she might want to do it because she wants, but is it her responsibility to make sure that he says Berachas HaMazon? He's a Gil Chinuch, he's supposed to say Berachas HaMazon, he's supposed to daven, he's supposed to eat in the sukkah when it comes sukkahs. So he wants to eat, so she has to make sure he goes to the sukkah, or it's not her issue. Her issue is he should be a man, and he should teach him, he should, but the actual Chinuch and the mitzvahs. So Agamor says that a woman is not chayiv, according to Rish Lakish. And also about being mechanech a daughter. Of course, you have to make a daughter into a bas Yisrael, kshera, and everything. But the chinuch of mitzvahs, whatever mitzvah she's chayiv to do, is their chiyuv of chinuch. So it's a very fascinating sugya, and there's very little talk about it. And the Mishnah that the main issue revolves around is only Rish Lakish who's saying so, according to our Mishnah.
That there is a chiyuv.
That there's no chiyuv. It says here there's no chiyuv. And the more goes on, Rish Lakish has to say many techukim. He's going to say Agamor is going. Hakafas kol rosh is drabanan, and foolishness through bazor is drabanan, and shchita lofen is shchita lofen. A lot of job. He has to do a lot of surgery here to make that the mission should fit. So there's many holes like that. I don't even know if Rish Lakish holds like that. And Rabbi Yochanan doesn't have to say any of this because he also has lachal Moshe Messina. So he doesn't have to say all these. So the question in the Achronim is: does Rabbi Yochanan agree? Is Rish Lakish saying it halacha, and is it only by Nazir it means? It doesn't mean by all kinds of mitzvahs. And does Rabbi Yochanan agree to it?
Does Rish Lakish really agree to it?
Does even Rish Lakish agree to it? It could be that Rish Lakish also does. He's just saying this is what this Tana holds. Because you see the rest of it doesn't have to hold. Like I don't think Rish Lakish has to agree to the rest of them. But the Shechita doesn't have to say, I hold this Mishnah that says that there's a chiyuv for a father, not for a mother. If he makes it fit according to that Mandiyama, it doesn't have to mean he holds like that. So I don't know if Rish Lakish holds like that. They also say maybe dafka by Naziros, maybe not by other things. These 2 points about chinuch, and maybe Rabbi Yochanan doesn't hold of it either. We pass like Rabbi Yochanan. So this is a question in the Achronim, and it seems to end up with Machlokas Achronim. Is a mother chayiv in chinuch, and is there chinuch for a daughter? So there's a few more sugyas. Talks about in Sukkah, talks about Hilni Amalka, that she did take care of her children to sit in the Sukkah. And
what do you learn from Bathsheba?
Yes, there's no question that I try to be among them that for sure is Torah Simecha for sure. But we're talking about the technical issue about doing the mitzvahs, to stay Kriyash in the morning, or whatever, the daven in the morning, and at night, whatever is going to be chinuch. Does he have to? Is the mother's responsibility, or that's not an issue? The father should take care of that.
It's just very. And we came to Sarah Schneer when she went to the complaint that he got they didn't say, oh, because that a girl has to learn. They said the only reason why that they said to her that she could open up is because she's not going to have anybody to manage.
And they're not going to be Jewish also. They'll be Machal Davos. Yeah. Yeah. So I
nobody
think
said anything about that a girl has to.
Right. Yeah. That's another question you're talking about. You're talking about Talmud Torah.
Right.
That's a different issue. The issue is chinuch. One issue is about learning Torah. For surely a girl doesn't have to learn Torah. No mitzvah to learn Torah. Even maybe sometimes it's detrimental. But here we're talking about chinuch for mitzvahs. That a girl also has mitzvahs. So that's the question. Is there a chinuch of mitzvahs on a daughter? And is there a mitzvah of chinuch on a mother to her son?
You see that a cut is part of a creation because the father's not around. So
You
he's
think-
answered the
Right. By the way, that's not simple. That's what Rashi says, but it's just to answer a kasha. It means the Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara just says that there's no mitzvah for the chinuch of Kriya Shema. There's no mitzvah on Kriya Shema. It's not even a question but you give the chinuch, lo give the chinuch. That's all tumult over there. Why should it be pater? Why did they pater the child from Kriya Shema? So Rashi says because the father's not around, which is a little difficult because he is chayiv in tefillah. So the father's not around by his man Kriya Shema, but he's around by his man tefillah. It's a little difficult. But Rashi says it on his own over there. But you're right that according to that, it comes out that the mother is around, but they couldn't be mechayiv the father because the father, the main chiv is always going to be on the father, and they weren't mechayiv. But just to point out that's not a gemara. It's a shot that the Rishonim have to say in order to explain why should there be no chiyav of chinuch on Kriya Shema. There's the Gemara over here. What else is there? Another Gemara they talk about?
Recording in progress.
I don't remember if there's not too much talk about it. It's brought down, just the Mishabur brings it down in the Shimon Gimel over there, talks about the chiv of chinuch for the father, and he mentions one line, Machlokas Achronim, if there's a chiv of chinuch on the mother. And as far as,
That's, you'll never see any of the children talking after the doyim till eating challah. You'll never see it. Nobody ever eats after they wash. He says, but you see kids that they talk in shul. Why? Because usually the mother that teaches you, teaches them not to talk, and she never talks afterwards. It's usually the father that teaches the boy not to speak in shul, but he always talks. So the kid sees him how to talk, he also talks. The way you teach them, that's the way they do.
so it's a very fascinating sugi over here. Like and again, the mothers surely they're going to deter us yimacha, and the mothers are being mechanach the kids the whole day. But the technical chiyuvim for mitzvahs is not the mother's responsibilities and focus based on the question how to learn our Gemara, and also the chiyuv chinuch for our daughter. There's one more fascinating thing that we spoke about. We mentioned it yesterday in passing, maybe that the Taisha says that the chiyuv chinuch is only in the positive. That's very interesting. That according to our Gemara, here it is, Tema, Hadama Ba'alma, Katan Ochel Nevelos, Ein Bezin Vasivana Refisho, Vamar Aflachan Chol Lasas Mitzvahs Mutalala. Here it says there's a chiyuv chinuch. And there's another sukkah that talks about that the Katan is the person doesn't have to stop him from doing an Avera. How do you reconcile these two things? Taisus first doesn't say the difference between Bezdin and the father. So what's the difference? So Taisus says something very which the Machanchim point out. The chinuch lo shayach ela laziro lasos ulokayim mitzvah aval lahazim elavar ein zeh chinuch. The aim is very interesting. Most people will say chinuch is to say don't do this, don't do that. And here it says that maybe chinuch is only the positive. Yes, to do mitzvahs, but there's no
for the father.
even for the father, it could be that the chinuch is to do mitzvahs, to daven, to say brachas wasn't to sit in the sukkah. But it could be that the mitzvah of chinuch would not include not doing an avera. Very interesting.
Was that here?
Fine. It's Teshuvah Amud Beis on the bottom of Amud Beis. About 1, 2, 3, 5. It's highlighted on the screen if it shows over here.
Isn't the Musar movement built on exactly the other side of it?
What is that?
The whole Musar concept, Musar movement concept.
We're talking about
is
children.
built on
We're talking about,
to.
yeah, I don't think so either. The Muslim movement shouldn't be only on the negative, it should be on the positive also. Avos Hashem, Yiras Hashem, of course, it has to be very positive. If it's only negative, I think it's not going to take well even on the adults also.
There are people who complain, I'm always telling my children, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. And they say, what is Yiddishkeit?
I heard from a Machanach, a famous Machanach, he said that it's a very big yisod, this Tosfos, and he said that he once made the woman challenged him to his claim that most people are just saying don't. He said, please put on a tape recorder. In those days it was a tape recorder. Put on a tape recorder around the house and listen at the end of the day how many times he said yes, how many times he said no, or how many times he said do something. How many said and they said then they came back and they said over 90% is no, don't. And if you're not doing it consciously, a person is going to say don't. And he was saying that is lacking. If he does saying don't the whole day, he's stifling the kid also, even if he listens. So he's the whole time he's not doing. Tell him what he has to do. Tell him how to do good things. So there might be a big yisod in chinuch over here. Okay, continue the Gemara. Daf Lamed. So now it's a new halach l'mishem v'sina. Although I gave that away, we didn't know yet. Let's start. Sugya here. Daf Lamed. Ish megalech on the zirus of. So we had this mentioned earlier a couple of pages ago. We brought it in Agav, but here's where it talks about that a man sometimes we're going to see sometimes a man could use the kabbanis of his father's nazirus for his own nazirus. The father was a nazir and he had kabbanis that were left over, and he died. Then he didn't use the kabbanis. Most stumim, he had money that was set aside, but he didn't designate what it's for. Sometimes the son is allowed to use it for his own kabbanis that he's a nazir, but a woman cannot. But the woman who's also a nazira and she wants to use her father's leftover money from his kabbanis that he was more stumim, he had money that he designated, so she cannot. Then it says Ketzad. The Gemara is going to talk about why he is a man and not a woman. They won't talk about it. How come? And now it says Ketzad. So the Mishnah is going to say that in some cases yes, some cases not. I made it reddish and green, that pink. That sometimes the son cannot use the father's money, and sometimes he can. Now the secret to this sugi is that there's a big tumult in the girsos. The girsos are not simple. We had the girs a couple of days ago in the Gemara. We changed the girs over there because I thought that it was pashut, but it's not pashut at all. The girsa is not clear. It could be that's supposed to be the opposite girsa. The red is supposed to be green. The green is supposed to be red. It could be the opposite. And we have it. And on with base, we'll see the other girsos maybe, and a lot of confusion amongst the Rishonim and what they. Okay, so the way we'll read our Mishnah, and that's how we read it the other time, but it's not so simple. Just to keep in mind that it could be the opposite. Here it says, Ketzad. 1 second.
Something to do with Dr. Fine.
So just maybe mute.
1 second. Okay, everything's fine. Okay, so Ketzad. Misha Yaviv Nazir, the Hifish Mos Tumim on the Zivus of Ames. The father was a Nazir, the son was not. Only the father was a Nazir, and he designated money stumim. Means he didn't say we're supposed to be Chatasol or Shlom. He just said this $300, whatever is supposed to be for the kabbanis that he needs, and he died. And now the son says, there's money left over from the father for Nazirus that was dedicated for the Nazirus. So I'll become a Nazir and I'll use his kabbanis. And the son then, after the father died, said, I'll be a Nazir and I'll use the money that the father left over for my kabbanis. No, he can't. This is the case where the son is not allowed to use his father's money for the Nazirus. And it's a regular case that the father died, and as if the son wouldn't be a Nazir, and the money goes to Nidaba like any time more stumim that the Nazir leaves over. So money that he had set aside, but he didn't specify what each one is for. So he pulled the Nidaba, that's the Olas Sibur. So what is the case? What is the case that the son is allowed to use the father's money for his own Nazirus? This is what would be the case. Misha Yehu Ve'aviv Nazirim. Both of them were Nazirim. Means that the son was a Nazir also during the father's lifetime. And the father has designated money for himself. The father designated money for his own Nazirus and he died. This is the case that the son is now allowed to use the father's money. Okay, so that's the Mishnah. It says that sometimes a man could use the father's money for his Nazirus. The woman never. The woman's never allowed to use the money. What's the case that the son is allowed to use it? Only if he became a Nazir also in the father's lifetime, and then the father died, then he's allowed to, and the father had designated that money, and he was also a Nazir, then he's allowed to use it. But if the father was a Nazir and the son was not a Nazir, and the father died, then he cannot use his father's money. Okay.
His father died. I'm sorry.
Because his father died and he was not, and the son was not a Nazir yet. So in that case, he cannot use his father's money for his Nazirus. But if he was a Nazir also, that's why I just highlighted Aviv or Ahuva Aviv. If he was a Nazir together with his father, and then the father made the money for the kabbanis, and the father died, then the son is allowed to use it.
We've done that already a few times.
Yeah, we said this.
Why because we did fast forwarding, so just to get to know.
The Mishnah, the Gemara quoted this Mishnah.
My timer. Why could, so I'm saying a pshat, my timer, why could the, it's good? No good? But now it's good?
Yeah.
My timer. Rabbi Yochanan, Allah ibn Nazir, Allah Moshe Messinai. So this is the third time Rabbi Yochanan is telling us Allah ibn Nazir. Different Mishnahs came up, and each time he says Allah ibn Nazir, Allah Moshe Messinai. So this whole invention that a son could use his father's money that was designated for the karbanos of Nazir for himself is Allah Moshe Messinai. And it also says in the Mishnah that the woman cannot, the daughter cannot, only the son, and not the daughter. On that, the Gemara says, Pshita, the fact that the son could use his father's money, also you need a Lacham Moshe Messinai. Without Lacham Moshe Messinai, you wouldn't know that. But the Gemara is asking Pshita on the halacha that the daughter cannot. That means that there's 2 points. One is that first of all, who's the money belong to? So it belongs to the son because he's a Yoresh. Even if he's a Yoresh, it doesn't mean he can use the father that money for his own korbanos. So that's the chiddush Lacham Moshe Messinai that he made. But to say that the daughter cannot, you don't need a Lacham Moshe Messinai. For sure you can. The member, the Ben Yoresh is with Baslo. No. What do you see? What is it coming to tell you that the son Yarshins and the daughter doesn't Yarshin? That's the kasha. The kasha is that I'm sorry.
Why is she's not yours?
So sure she can use her father's carbon. It's not hers at all. The son, even if he does yashin, but it's a chiddush that he could use it because it's his father's carbon. So who says he could use it for himself? Says well, Allah Mashmasina that he may. But the fact that the daughter may not, you don't need. The Gemara is asking, you don't need Allah Mashmasina for that. That should go without saying.
And the fact that the father was Menaderet his daughter, Menaderi's daughter.
We're not there. We're not in that sugya. We're talking about that. Nothing to do that was in yesterday's sugya. Where each Mishnah is a sugya in itself. The father was a Nazir, and it says in the Mishnah that sometimes if he dies, the son is allowed to use his karbanis, his money for the karbanis, and the daughter can never. So the question is, first of all, why can the son? That is said Allah Moshe Messinai. Now the question is there any chiddush that the daughter may not? So the Mishnah makes it sound like it's a chiddush that the daughter may not. And that the Gemara asks.
Well, we think maybe if the daughter was a Nazir.
Yes.
Maybe.
But it's not her korban. It's not her money because she doesn't get a yashin. That's why it's kasha that we pull the rug from under. That's not hers. So that's no, we're asking on the Mishnah. We're asking on the Mishnah that there's no chiddush that the daughter may not. Or if Rabbi Yochanan meant to say that it's Allah Moshe Messinai, but the daughter also, then it's a kasha. You don't need Allah Moshe Messinai. You don't need a Mishnah. Of course, the daughter can't because it's not hers. The son who belongs to him because of Yarshin, there's a chiddush, he could use it for his own korban. But the daughter that doesn't Yarshin, so it doesn't start, doesn't get off the ground. It's not hers. The Ben Yosh is of Vaslo, it's come to tell you that the daughter doesn't Yarshin. We know the daughter doesn't Yarshin. The answer is Lo Sricha the Leslie Ella Bas. In the case where she does Yarshin, because if there's no sons, then the daughter does Yarshin. So even in a case where the daughter would Yarshin, but the Chalach al Moshe Messinai is going to tell us that she can't use that for her own Naziros, even though the son may. You might think that Allah Moshe Messinai was anybody that Yarshins could use that korban, so it does make difference if it's a son or a daughter. If now the daughter is Yarshining, she also may use it for her own Naziros. So it tells us Allah Moshe Messinai that this was only said for the son, not for the daughter. So we have so far pshat in the halacha that says that a son could use the father's Naziros, korbanos, money, more stumim for the korbanos, Allah Moshe Messinai, and the daughter cannot, even if she Yarshins. So
the last line is Maru the time is the question, what does this mean? And the Yoshin Gemir Allah, she does have you.
The question was the daughter doesn't Yarshin, so there's no chiddush. The answer is in the case where there are only a daughter, there's no sons, only a daughter, so she is Yarshin. So Maru the time Yoshin Gemir Allah, you might think that Halach Moshe Messinai was that any Yoresh could use the korban the money that he Yarshin for the Nazirus, and the daughter also will be able to now that she's Yarshin. The Halach Moshe Messinai says no, that only the son may and this daughter may not. Now in the Mishnah, if you go back to the Mishnah, I didn't stress it so much that the Mishnah says Rav Yossi in between. Rav Yossi. If we read the Mishnah again, it says that a son could sometimes use the money of his father, the stumim of his father for his own korban. And the Mishnah said sometimes not, sometimes yes. What's the case that's not? So it's that if only the father was a Nazir, the son was not, and then he died, and the son becomes a Nazir, then he cannot use his father's money. But who says that? Rav Yossi is talking. Rav Yossi. It's a little strange how the Mishnah reads, but it's not the regular style. But just to read it again, if somebody's father was a Nazir and the father had designated money without specifying what it's for, which korbanos it is, and he died, and the son now said, I'm a Nazir in order to use my father's money, Rabbi Yossi says, like it's the middle of a sentence, that tells you the case, and the psak is, Rabbi Yossi says, no, this goes to the Nadava, he cannot use his father's money. So Rabbi Yossi is the author of our Mishnah. And the Gemara wants to know, if it says, Rabbi Yossi says so, it's mashma a little bit that people argue. Who's arguing? What is anybody arguing? And if they're arguing, what are they arguing about? So we have this Mishnah that says sometimes yes, sometimes not. And the question is, if it's only Rabbi Yossi, who is arguing on him? Is anybody arguing on him? What are they arguing about? That's the most question on the top of Amud Beis. The Rabbanan, the Chachamim that they argue means, but since it says Rabbi Yossi's name, maybe other people argue.
On which member of the AC?
So that's also part of the question. And if they are arguing, what part are they arguing? Rabbi Yossi said two things. Rabbi Yossi says in the Mishnah that if the father was a Nazir by himself, then the son cannot become a Nazir afterwards to use his money. And if the son was a Nazir together with the father, then he may use the money after the father dies. And all this is Rabbi Yossi talking. This is the Reisha, this is the Sefer. The Reisha says when it's not good, the Sefer says when it is good. So now the question is, if someone's arguing, only Rabbi Yossi says so. Does anybody argue? So if they're arguing, are they arguing on the Reisha and make that also green? Make everything. It's always mutter that it can be Megalech al his father and Mosaviv, even if he was not a Nazir together with his father, or is he arguing in the Sefer and saying that he cannot be Megalech al Nazir Saviv, even if he was a Nazir together with his father? Means Rabbi Yossi says sometimes yes, sometimes not. And now, does anybody argue? If the one is arguing, is it coming to arguing on what Rabbi Yossi said not, and they're going to agree yes, to make everything green, or they're arguing on the part that Rabbi Yossi said yes, and they're saying no, and there's not going to be such a thing. It can't be Megalech al Nazir Saviv. That's the most question. It says Rabbi Yossi is talking. So what are the Rabbanan who are arguing? What do they hold about it? So the Gemara is going to continue now with a different girsa. Means the girsa that's in our Mishnah is one girsa, and you can change it around. The girsa in our Mishnah might be the opposite. That this part would be green and this part would be red. That the case of Aviv alone would be the case that he could. For some reason, as far as to say that if the father was a Nazir without the son being there at the time and he died, then the son could become a Nazir and use the father's kabbalas. And if he was a Nazir together with his father, was a reason that he may not. There's opposite gears in the Mishnah, not machlokas ikadamris. Gersos in the printer. There's issue in the printers over here. The Fus Venezia and the Fus Minkin and all these different Kisveyad. So there's a question in the gears over here. So it makes it a little confusing. Our Gemara now, if I remember correctly, the Gemara is going to have a different gears in our Mishnah. But and then we're going to find. Okay, let's see what it says.
Doesn't the verse say that you just
Change around the Mishnah. Change the Mishnah. Okay. Tashma. So we're going to do the opposite of our Mishnah. Like if our Mishnah says, change the Mishnah around and put in the word over here that it's a lot of surgery over here. Take
no, just change the Mishnah of the.
Put in who ve'aviv nazir ve'vishim meis v'amar ve'nisam. And then the second one is aviv. Vishaya aviv nazir. Okay, this word of is probably okay, but if you change it around and say the case of aviv, let's change it. Okay, okay, I don't have the caliph to do the surgery, but the color change was other some not erase this word. I can erase things, but
it also makes sense that that if he accepted a new Nazirus after the father
is more reason.
It's more reason to say that he can use it.
I don't understand anything. I don't have any svara, and everything's Lachim Messina. I don't know. I don't hear the svara. You hear the svara like that? Okay, that's for making it easier. So let's change the colors at least and see what we could do over here. This is going to be the case. That's not good. So we're going to say that that's this case. Who aviv is the case that I don't know how to do this. Put in the word einze. Put in the word ein. I'm not going to know how to do this over here. We'll try.
Right word.
No good. Okay. Ein. Okay. And the first case will be the case where we are going to allow him over here. When it was Aviv alone, we're going to say Megaleach on the 07. And we'll erase these words over here. Okay, if we do that, then the Gemara is going to be able to read easier. And the Mishnah should be the opposite case. Okay, Tashma. Case that I'm Ishmael Galech on the zero subject. What is the case that the son could use the father's money? Mishai Aviv Nazir Bifish. This is the case that it's going to say that you could. Mishai Aviv Nazir Bifish Aviv Moslan Zivusom Meis. Vamareni Nazir Amnashe Galech Mosaba. That the father was alone a Nazir without the son. And after he died, the son wants to use the money that the father left over. This is the case that he made. But but if he and his father, both of them, were Nazirim, so here it says that the way it says in our Mishnah, if you change the gears. Okay, so, and that was Rabbi Yossi. And what was the question? If anybody argues on him, does anybody argue? So here it says somebody argues. Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Amru, Zehu Shemagalech al Mosami. So that's a question to learn how you learn over here also. They're definitely arguing. They're arguing. So the one want to know, does anybody argue? Yes, Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Meir, Yehuda, they all argue. They argue on the Mishnah and say that there's a case of Magalech al Mosami. So how do you read this Mishnah? How do you read? What are they coming to say? So some say that they're arguing on the Sefer, and they say both cases would be able to. Both cases could be Megalech al Nazir Zav. No difference if the father is Nazir by himself or the son was a Nazir together with the father. There's no difference. Our Mishnah says only in some cases. So some will learn. Some Rishonim will learn that the answer is that he's arguing, and they make it all the way. And that's how the Rambam seems to say, that there's no difference if it was Aviv or Hu Ve'aviv, the son is allowed to use the father's money for his karbanos. Some Amadai that says Zehu, they come to say the opposite. This is the case. And that's how it sounds like a little bit. Huh?
The whole picture is different.
That this is Zehu, this is the case. And the opposite case means the Gersa would be that the case where it was Aviv is not good, the case where it's Hu Aviv is yes good. So that's a question that we show them how to learn. The Chafetz Chaim does brings that. This Chafetz Chaim, I forgot all these weeks that this Chafetz Chaim Lakutei Halachos that he wrote on Kachim Sugyas. So he made like a riff kind of a Sugya sefer, and he brings down these Gemaras and he brings down the Psak. So he says the Rambam Paskins like the Rabbanan, Rabbi Lezer of Meir Yehuda, and he learns that everything is no difference. That in any case the son is allowed to be Megalech on the zero zone. Okay, so the only confusion in this Gemara is only the Gersos. That's only confusing part. Everything else is Allah Moshe Sinai. So I don't know if you need Svaros, but Allah Moshe Sinai. When is the son allowed to? There's one Gersa that says that it's better if he was a Nazir together with his father. There's one Gersa that says it's better if he was not a Nazir together with his father. Then there's a question if there's an argument. We have a brisa that there is an argument, and some say something, and there's something might be that they hold that everything, there's no difference. Anytime the son is not on the zero sub, have no difference. Okay, good. If we go further, there was a couple of questions now. The rest of the parak is going to be a couple of questions about this halacha that a son that Yashins, his father, he's allowed to use the more stumim that the father left over for Nazir, he's allowed to use it for himself. Boy, Rabba, Yesh lo shnei banim Nazir ma. What if he has two sons? And both of them are Nazirim, and they want to use the father's money, leftover money, for their karbanos. Hilchas Gemir law called the kadim gimagaleya, called the kadim gala for the different gisos here. That it's not that it overrides the din of Yerusha. It's true that they're the Yorshim, but any one of them has the right to grab it. Whoever grabs it first is allowed to use it, and the other one can't have a taina. Or Dilma Yerusha Gemir law or Palgahu, or maybe he still goes with the din of Yerusha, and he has the right to get it, and each one, if they are two, so they get half of it. They split the money, and each one will bring have to give in half the money from his own pocket. But one of them can't come and say, "I got it first." There's no first. They regularly Yerusha. They divide it equally, and they're all allowed to use it for their Nazirus. So that's the question, and the Gemara doesn't answer the question. Next question, Boy Rava. What if there's a firstborn? The firstborn, as far as Yerusha goes, he gets a double portion. Does he get a double portion also of the money? We're going now. It's intim salama. The Gemara doesn't say, but it's going on the side. And the Tzadi say that it isn't for whoever comes first. It does go to Dinei Yerusha. So that's if they're both shutim, if they're both equal brothers, that they're not a bechor. Do they get half? What if one is a Bechor? Does he have a right to 2/3? Is he going to get a double portion?
Well, the carbon,
The money, the Mostumim of the father. The father was a Nazir, had Mostumim, he died, and now they had two sons, both of them on Nazirim. They were Nazirim, they became Nazirim, whatever your gear you're going to go with, and they want to both use the money. So if they have Shutim, the Gemara set aside, maybe first come, first serve, maybe they split it. Now the Gemara is saying another question, that if there's a Bechor, does he have a right to get Pishnai?
From the other brother.
Bechor Pashat might. There's one brother is a firstborn, and a Pashat means it's not a Bechor. Pashat is the way you say one is not a Bechor. Do you say Hilchas Gemir La Vilkach La Boy Geluche Lefumai Deshakil? It doesn't go with the Dinei Yerusha as far as this halacha, so he's not going to be eligible to get double portion. Maybe it does go with the Dinei Yerusha, and the firstborn is entitled to get a double portion for this korban money. The Gemara now, the Chor is going to say the same question over again, but it's going to say with a different lumdus. The first lumdus was, does it go with Dinei Yerusha or it doesn't? Now the Gemara is saying, even if it does go with Dinei Yerusha, then Tim Salama Yerusha, even if you say that it is Yerusha, take money, well, from the Shakal Magaleach, maybe they take out the Vav. The Chulin, who the Islay, Pish 9, Aval Behektish Lo, Adulmach, even the Kani Luach, Loshna. That even if you say it is a Din Yerusha, maybe the Din Pish 9 is only by Chulin, maybe by Hektish it doesn't apply, or maybe it applies even to Hektish, that since he does have a right to get it in order to use it for his own karbanos, he could get Pish 9. So it's two ways of addressing the question if the Bechor has a right to double portion of this money or not, and the Gemara doesn't answer that question either. New question. Aviv Nazir Olam, who is Nazir Stam? Nothing to do with the question before about the many brothers. The father was a Nazir and the son is a Nazir. And the Mishnah says that there's such a din Aviv Megalech on Nazir Savi. But maybe if it's not the same type of Nazir, there's a Nazir Olam and there's a regular Nazir. A regular Nazir means 30 days or 7 years, whatever he wants to make up, any amount he wants to make up, minimum 30 days. But the Nazir Olam means that he makes himself an everlasting Nazir, and there's also a din to bring kabbanos over there. Over there we have the mission beginning of the Masechta that someone becomes a Nazir forever, so he is allowed to lighten his hair when it gets overburdened, and he brings shalosh kabbanos. That even though really the kabbanos only bring at the end of the Nazirus when it's over, b'mlos. So then he brings the three animals, the chatasol and the shlamim. But the Nazir Olam, whenever he decides to take a haircut, he also brings the kabbanos. And he continues.
As a normal Nazir who finishes his term.
Right.
Exactly
right.
the same.
Yeah, you're right. That was the beginning of the Masechta. But here, the question is, the son that has a right to use the father's more stumim for his own kabbanos, how about over here? If the father was a Nazir Olam and he's a Nazir Stam, or the opposite, up of Nazir Stam, who Nazir Olam, are you also going to say that the son is allowed to use the father's money for his kabbanos? What's the question? So Duma, Loshna, do you say that it's only regular for regular, or Nazir Olam for Nazir Olam maybe? Probably including the Gemara's question, it has to be the same type. Or no, that he's allowed to use the father's kabbanos for himself, even if it was a different type of Nazirus. And the last question is Intim Salama Hacha Idi V'Idi Nazir Tara by Rabashi Aviv Nazir Tameh Vu Nazir Toher, or the opposite Aviv Nazir Toher Vu Nazir Tameh Mai, and this thing is Teku. So what about there's the money, the father had set aside money for one kind of a korban, meaning if it was Tameh, let's say the father became Tameh and he set aside, and what does he need over there? He needs 2 birds, Chatas and Ola, and an Asham. And a Keves Lasham. And he died. He didn't bring it. And now the son became a Nazir, and he's a Nazir Torah. He wants to use that money to bring his kabbanos. It's also Nazir's kabbanos, but it's not the same kind of a Nazir. That was a Nazir Torah. This is a Nazir Torah. Or the opposite. The father was a Nazir Torah, and if someone wants to use the father's money for his own Nazir's Tameh, are you allowed to? Maybe yes, maybe not. All these things are questions. So the Gemara doesn't answer any of the questions. And how many questions did we have? If they had 2 sons, where did it start? If you have 2 sons, there are 4 questions over here. If they have 2 sons, do they share it equally? That Nazirim, or first come, first serve, or a Bechor Pasha, does he get double portion? If the father is a different type of a Nazir because it's a Nazir Olam and Nazir Stam, or another question about a Nazir Tameh and a Nazir Torah, they have right to use that father's money for his own. And the Gemara doesn't answer any of the questions. The Rambam goes like the Intim Salomar, that the Rambam says that in all the cases, besides the last case, He says in the first case, two the sons of Nazirim, yes, they split it. And the Bechor Pashut, he gets double portion. And Nazir Olam and Nazir Stam, also, he could use it, but by a Nazir Tam and Nazir Torah, over there he doesn't know. There's a little question over here, Machabus asked that there's no infim salom over here. This one about the Nazir Olam, the Nazir Stam, this doesn't go back in the question before. It's not infim salom, it's nothing to do with the question before. So why over there? Usually the Rambam goes, if it says infim saloma, that means that we're assuming that sign. If they want, which is also a chiddush that you're going to pass like infim saloma. Why? If we're just saying, I have a question. On one side of the answer, I don't have anything else to ask. On the other side, I still have questions. So that's a chiddush to say that infim saloma is already a reason to pass like that. But even so, this case between question number 2 and question number 3, there is no infim saloma. The first question was the sons had yarshin. It's true. The second question is only based on the assumption that in the first question is a din Yerusha. Then you talk about a Bechor Pashut. But the second and the third have nothing to do with each other. The second, the third, and the fourth also have to do with each other. This is by different kinds of kabbalas, both of them are Torah. This one is Torah, one is Tamei. It's more different. But between the second and the third, there's no connection between the questions. So the Rambam should have not known the answer to Bechor and Pashut either. Ad Kan.
According to the story that Intim Salomar is a reason to pass them like that.
Yes, even if you say Intim Salom is a reason to pass like that, what?
Rabbi always passes like that.
I don't know always, but it seems that that's his cloud.
Intim Salom means the Gemara that's.
Even on the side.
What you learned before.
Intim Salom means that I have question 1. Question 1 was A or B. If the answer is going to be A, I have nothing else to ask. But on the side that the answer to question 1 is B, then I have another question. And if you say such a terminology when you're in your logic, that intim salom, if you're going to say this, I have another question. So the Rambam seems to take that as an answer to the first question. But it's not so simple. Why is that? I don't see the logic of that. Okay, we
Getting a
feel.
little logic.
Yes.
Why did Gemara bother?
Because there's a question. There's a question on that side. On the other side, there's no question. I don't see why it's. Okay, we finished the 4th parak. There's actually I'm starting the 5th parak tomorrow.
Sure.
Yashikov.
Tomorrow night.